So let's talk a little bit about devices, tablets. You guys are starting some work now in figuring out, bringing standardization to tablets maybe, which doesn't really exist now. So obviously it's growing quickly, but there's no standardization. I mean, there's very little. What is the work that you guys are doing around that?
Well, one of the big trends that we're seeing, we're seeing this huge shift in consumer behavior. And what we see is really driving those trends those shifts are the digitization of content, right? Content's becoming liquid. It's no longer these hard files of film. Or these hard pieces of film. It's a file. It can be shared. It can be moved. It's also the distribution speed, right? So because everybody's connected all the time, and then the proliferation of devices. So tablets goes right along with that, right? So it happened to photos first, happened to music, video is next. So we need to make sure that advertising is a part of that conversation. It's not an afterthought. So some people, when we said we were focusing on tablets next, said to us, oh, it's too early, it's too early. But from the research that we've seen, by 2015, over half of households are going to have a tablet. This is a new device that is completely changing the way that people are interacting with media. And we need to make sure we're really listening to the consumer and figuring out how we should advertise on that tablet in a way that we are making an impact. So we're just in the early stages, but we're very excited about it.
I was going to say, Uyala had a really interesting study that came out recently talking about video and the shift between desktop and tablet mobile. And surprisingly, in that study, it talked about completion rates, time spent, and what you saw was the fairly dramatic shift going towards tablets and mobile devices, and the fact that people are completing more content on tablets twice as much. And they're consuming much longer video content on that format. So, and mobile devices, when you think of your smartphone, I mean, the fact that people are consuming longer forms on smartphones, et cetera. So I think, anyone that, to Beth's point, anyone that's not focused on that space for consumers, for monetization, looking at the platforms, how best do we play in HTML5, how do we convert a lot of content into that format.
So where does that stand? You guys have a fairly robust audience base for consuming video on tablets. How are you monetizing that?
We have spent a lot of time with HTML5, and one of the things that we've been doing is creating a lot of apps. So we've got a ton of apps either out or coming out that fit into our programming. And that extended, I think, the other thing is you have to look at the platform and the experience that you're building for. And if we don't, then we're creating something that you can't just port the desktop over. And HTML5 doesn't let you anyway. I mean, really, you have to create something that ports to a mobile device effectively because
so how are advertisers advertising now, and what's the limitations of that? Not to get too deep in the weeds, but...
You mean in terms of like apps, owning apps and things like that? Well, I mean, it's generally a sponsorship model, owning a particular application, a show, so you could own the Rachel Maddow show, the Rachel Maddow app. And there's obviously there's different devices and there are different ways that you could slice that. But the challenge, or one of the challenges in that model, is making sure you get the downloads right and get some kind of data behind it so that you can. It's like any new area that you're forging ahead in. You have to get that information.
What's happening with tablets? I mean, you have there must be a lot of interest in that. I mean, is advertising there yet, or what are the challenges?
I mean, it's so new. I don't know that anyone can really say yet, but we have seen some things that are intuitive to just consumption, right? So tablet being a much more of an entertainment device versus the way that you would use a PC, which is much more of creation of media, whereas tablet right now is less about creation and more about the consumption of media. So you think about things like hotspots, things about drilling down to certain contents, making things big and rich. I said it before and I'll say it again. I think what the Daily has done with Pepsi Max and Snoop Dogg was one of the best. It was on the ads, but it was one of the best things that we've seen so far about really using the space, making it creative, making it fun, and not only surprise and delight, but offering that utility. I think Dasani has done some great work with not only People, but also with Wired magazine, and not only integrating within the actual publication, but then also making sure that they have the right presence and how to use it correctly for that app space. So we've seen that, and I think the biggest thing that I've seen is it's not an either-or conversation. all these devices are still there. You have Windows 8 launching next year, which will really change the game, and we know that consumers are saying that the consumption of media tablet will become a creation of media tablet, they think, when they get their hands on Windows 8. So that's something that I think everyone's looking at. I read recently that 1 in 9, I think it might have been a Forrester quote, that 1 in 9 people are consuming linear television with a tablet on their lap. So 90% of tablet owners. I mean, that's a huge number when you start thinking about it. So I think there's a lot of opportunity to play where when people inevitably look away from the linear screen in their living room and go down to their lap, whether it's a teeny tablet called a mobile phone or whether it's a larger tablet screen, there's a lot of ability to play in there. And then the last thing is it's not apps or mobile web. It's both, because the more you use an app, the more you're using mobile web. The more you're using mobile web, the more you're using an app. And I think that both of those will sort of rise up. I do have an opinion as to where it'll ultimately go, and that will be mobile web, but we're not there yet.